Hey guys, and welcome back to Grace of a Military Child and Life podcast. Life from the perspective of a military family member is way different than a civilian standpoint. Military children and family members give up their hopes and dreams to be able to stand by and support their service member, and it isn't an easy lifestyle for anyone to live. I hope that this podcast is able to help connect the military community and give others just a glimpse into what the military life is like from the perspective of spouses and children. Hi everyone, welcome back to Grace of a Military Child and Life. Today I am here with Lily, who is an Air Force brat. So Lily, welcome to the podcast. How are you?
Good. Thanks for having me.
Awesome. Thank you for being here. So tell me what it was like for you growing up as an Air Force brat.
To be completely honest, I didn't even realize it wasn't normal until I was like 10. Just with moving around a lot. It actually took me until I moved off base for the first time when I was talking to other kids and they're like, "Oh, I've never left the state." And I'm like, wait, what? And it was honestly just strange at first, but I wouldn't change it for the world. I loved it. My dad's now retired, so that I'm kind of weirded out that my life as a military child is kind of coming to end. But in my mind, I'm still a military brat, so.
Yeah. I mean, my dad retired. I mean, obviously, you kind of know my dad's story a bit. So it was very different than what yours is. But he retired when I was 12. And so, you have this military child experience. And then at such a young age, your dad retires and it's like, it's a weird transition because you don't know what to do with your life. And you're like, I'm so used to people coming and going and me coming and going. And it's just so weird now, like being stationary, being in one spot, having the same friends now for many years and things like that.
I know. It's like when I was little, I just expected people to come and go. And it got to the point where even when I was became a teenager, when I messed up with my friends a little bit, I was just like, well, I'm just gonna be moving like in a year anyway.
Yeah, and that's kind of like, something that's so crazy is like you move every couple years and you get these new friends, or you move somewhere and then your friends move, and it's like, okay, you really begin to know who the true friends are, because the people who just come and go, are just, they're not the true friends. The true friends like stick around, they stay, even 8,000 miles apart, they still try and make an effort to keep in contact and keep in touch with you.
Yeah, that was always the heartbreaking part for me, because even after I moved from the first place, I felt like I could keep in contact with my friends. I don't talk to them anymore because they were never making an effort to reach out. And I was constantly trying to talk to them and like call them. And all of them were like, "Oh, I'm too busy. I can't talk to you right now. Sorry, bye."
Yeah.
And it kind of sucked for a while. And then I was like, whatever. Life goes on.
You move to a new place, you get new friends. And then, once you kind of start to transition into that retired life, you get the same friends for, a longer period of time. And then, I know you're in high school, so one day you'll graduate and move off to college and you'll make your own new friends in college. And it's a circle of life, really. Like, the come and go. And military kids, I think, just are so used to it that it doesn't affect us as much as it does civilian kids.
Yeah, I know. I was actually talking to a kid at school one day and they're like, "Oh yeah, my family might be moving to this place. I'm so scared. I don't want to do this." And I'm like, "But it's a whole new adventure." And I was talking to them, and suddenly I realized, oh, I'm not on base anymore. I can't be like, "Oh my God, why are you upset?"
Yeah, because, it's hard there's a large population of military kids who hate moving. Like, it is hard, and it's a struggle for, children to understand why you're moving. But once you kind of get over the sadness of it, it's like, oh my gosh, this is a new adventure. This is something new that I'm going to get to experience.
Yeah, I'm still starting to learn that other people don't like moving as much as I did. My brother certainly did not like it. He didn't like uprooting every 2 years. Meanwhile, I'm over here like, yes, I get to do.
Yeah, and sometimes it's like you get stuck in a place. I mean, I've lived in Cleveland, I've lived in San Antonio, and I've lived in Florida, and I've loved them all. But sometimes you could get to a place for a couple of years and you're like, oh my gosh, this absolutely sucks. I'm ready to go. And sometimes you get a place where it's like, oh my gosh, like this is paradise. I never want to leave.
I know. The, there were a couple places where I was over it like immediately, and then there were some places where I could just stay there for years. It was so cool. But I've also talked to some other kids here, and they're so excited to leave. They're like, once I graduate, I'm leaving this place, never gonna come back. And I'm looking at them like, why? Actually, I do like traveling, but I do plan on having like a home base here where I'm living now.
Yeah.
But some kids have never left the state. They've only gone like to the state right next to us, and they're just like, "Oh, I can't wait to leave." But I don't think they know that sometimes they will get nostalgic, and they sometimes will want to return to a home base. This is the first place I've been where I'm going to get to stay for a long time, and it's just weird. I have that both like, oh, I want to leave, I want to adventure, and then I'm like, but I also kind of want to stay here.
Yeah.
But
And it's hard, I always hate being asked the question, where is home? Because, even though I have way less options to choose from of home than a normal military kid will have, because sometimes, in 18 years, you've lived in 18 different homes. Like, and
yeah,
I've only had 3. But even still, where are you from? Where's home? That's the hardest question to ask because I'm like, okay, I was born and raised in Cleveland for 9 years. And then my more formative years were spent in Texas. And then me, throughout all of my teenage years, I was in Florida. So, like, and, young adult, that's where I go to college, things like that. So it's like, where is home? Each
I
place
know.
has some sort of meaning.
Yeah, it all comes together to make you who you are as a person. Like, I moved back to California after a while, and that kind of the place I went to kind of toughened me up a little bit.
Yeah.
There weren't as nice people as the place I had just previously been living. There were still amazing people there, but like I had been living in Japan before that in on base where kids are always respectful of one another. We never had bullies. Then moving there, I had kids picking on me a lot, and it kind of like made me stronger from it, even if I didn't like it at the time.
Yeah. And there's so many different, as you move around, like you even mentioned another country, like,
Yeah,
not many kids get to experience that to start off with. But, moving around, you find these pros and cons of each place. You get to experience the different cultures, even within, you know, the United States border. There are so many, you go from like, Florida and Texas and Ohio and the West and the Southwest and every single geographical like place in this country, whether you go by city, county, state, or country, is so different, you know? And so
it really.
the different cultures, even within America, is insane. And, as military kids, that's one thing that we get to experience and we get to, sometimes it's harder than others in some places. Sometimes kids are nicer, sometimes kids are meaner, and you never know until you get there and you start exploring it.
Yeah, it's honestly incredible to learn about the different cultures. It's also interesting to learn about the different types of people that live in other areas. Like where I'm living now, a lot of people work in forests and stuff like that. They're always lugging wood and stuff like that. And then before this, I was living in New Mexico, where
Yeah.
like you have to drive an hour to get to the forest. And I still went hunting there with my dad, But a lot of kids were like, "Oh yeah, my family doesn't hunt." And here everyone's like, "Oh, I hunt every weekend."
Yeah. There's so many just different values, different morals, different beliefs, different activities, different everything in, the desert to, the forest and the mountains. You never know what you're going to get until you get there.
I know, and different landscapes too are honestly pretty interesting.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people tend to think just of culture, but like when I was in New Mexico, there was this running joke between my brother and my dad. When my dad would look out into the desert and be like, "It looks so beautiful here," and my brother would say, "What is here?" Because it's empty,
Yeah.
and it was still very pretty. My brother was just joking, but like,
Yeah.
you
And
could look.
like, you never, you know, Ohio is pretty, you know, there's hills and valleys. And Texas, you had to drive an hour to hill country. And in Florida, it's flatland. Like, I swear the F in Florida stands for flatland. So,
Yeah, but my uncles always calling my mom Flatlander because she was born and raised in California,
yeah.
and that's where my brother and I are from too. So, or at least
Yeah.
that's where I say we're from.
It's where, that's your choice because there are so many other places that you could choose from.
I know. I was in my Spanish class actually, and one of the things we were learning was how to say where we're from, and we had to go around telling other classmates, "Oh, soy de California, soy de Maine," or whatever. And whenever I would say it to another person, they'd like start asking me all these questions, like, "Really? You're not from Maine? You're not from here?"
I know. And,
Yeah,
because you're not on a military base, you can't just say, you can't be, on one side of the country and then say you're from the other side of the country without getting asked questions.
I know. There were some places where, even off base, there were higher populations of military kids, mostly because it was like a smaller area. Like when I lived in Hawaii, there was like five other military kids in my classes, and we would constantly talk about it. Like, oh, I'm from so and so, I'm from here, da da da.
Yeah,
And
because you find those kids and you just start like a connection right away, even if
yeah.
you didn't know them prior. Like you find out you're a military kid and you're like, oh my gosh, like it's family.
Yeah, I also tend to bond with adults sometimes that I discover were military brats. Like I
Yeah.
actually have a teacher who was ex-military, and I immediately was like, "I'm a military brat."
It's like, okay, so me and my friend, like we always say it's a badge of honor. Like, it's something that you're proud of. You're proud of your parents' service, whether that's your mom or your dad. You know, in our cases, it's our dads, but mom served too. So you wear it as a badge of honor. You're like, I grew up a military child, and even though I may have spent a lot of time complaining about it, and the life did suck a lot. I am a military child, and I'm proud of it. Like I wouldn't change it for the world.
Yeah, it makes me feel sometimes like really empowered to know that I've been through a lot. I've seen a lot of things that other kids haven't, and I'm forever grateful that I got to experience those things. Uh, some people probably just think, oh, but the moving must suck. But I'm just grateful that I got to see so many things that some kids may never get to. And I kind of feel like everyone should get to at least see some of the things that you and I have seen in other places.
Yeah, because honestly, I think growing up a military child makes us so much more mature at our ages. And, um, we get life experiences that shape us and that, are going to allow us to carry the future. Because, I mean, let's be real, we are, our generation are these generations to come, like that's the future. And, a lot of these kids who don't grow up with the same values and morals that we have, it's like the future can seem kind of scary. So it's
I
a
know.
good thing that, we have in our back pockets that we can say, hey, we grew up military. Like, this is how we're running it. This is not how we go,
Yeah.
and a lot of other kids, should have that opportunity, like you just said.
Yeah, a lot of the kids here have like never left the state, and sometimes I feel a little bad because I'll be talking about, oh, I've been here, I've been here, and they'll get like, oh, you're so lucky, and then I forget like, oh, they've never gotten to see these kinds of things, and I really wish that they could,
Yeah.
not just like to leave the state, but maybe gain some of the same strength that we may have, or just to see some of the beautiful things outside of the state. Um, but it's still awesome here.
Yeah.
Every
Well, I
place.
mean, you have to grow to love it, and if you don't, you're going to be miserable no matter how
Yeah.
long you're there.
Yeah. I do feel bad for those kinds of people who do grow miserable with where they are. Like, I've learned to become happy with where I am. I still want to travel one day and see the world. And like, I want to go see a bunch of different countries like Europe, South America, and whatever.
Yeah.
But some kids are just so hateful of where they're from. And sometimes that makes me a little upset that they don't see the beauty, because I just moved here and I find it amazing and it's so pretty here. And it's like, I want to experience everything about this culture, even if I'm technically from here by my father and his side of the family.
Yeah.
Like, and
It's, you know, I hated Florida. I will tell you that right now. I hated Florida. I loved it for about a year, and then years 2, 3, and 4, it was tough. And it was also tough because it was just that transition. Nobody understood me. Everybody is like, "Oh my gosh, you're military." And then, you see my dad who's been injured by war, and it's like, "Oh my gosh, like we want to do everything for you." And I'm like, "Okay, back up. I'm a military kid. I'm independent on my own." Like, and so it's hard, transitioning to these places, and, you feel so depressed just kind of by the area that you're in. And it's like, I have to love it. And so after, those 3 years went by and I was like, I hate it here. It's the worst place ever. You find things that you love about it. And even if it's not many, if it's just like a restaurant or something, stupid like that, you're like, I still do love, certain parts of it. And I may not love it all and I may not want to stay here, but I do love parts of it. I love being, so close to Disney and everything like that. Um but you find places, in Cleveland and San Antonio. I miss living the big city life. I went up to Cleveland for 3 weeks and I was like, "Oh my gosh, like the culture just of Cleveland is insane." Like you have Italians, you have Puerto Ricans, like everyone is there. It's just so much diversity in the culture. And you don't get that, here in Florida where we are. So you can, it sucks when you hate where you live, but you find ways to love it no matter what, because you have to.
yeah, I've just learned to find those little things and hold on to them. I've pretty much loved all the places I've stayed for just little things. I don't think I've ever really hated one.
Yeah.
Maybe in the moments I did, but I've come to love all of the different places I've been, and I learned a different thing from each area, which I find incredible just to gain those values and pick them up along the way.
Yeah, because if you don't, like, you're going to miss out on so much and miss out on so much around you and miss out on like discovering who you are. Because honestly, I have little parts of Cleveland in me. I have little parts of Texas in me. I have little parts of Florida in me. Like, people ask me, they're like, "Where's your accent from?" Because sometimes I sound like a northerner, sometimes I sound like a southerner. The southern accent between Texas and Florida is so different. So sometimes I sound like a Florida Southern, like, you just pick up, and even just, in accents, in personality and character and everything, you just become like this huge mishmash of everywhere you've been.
Yeah. Um, I don't really think I have an accent. I can't really tell just because a lot of the people I've met have like a similar accent to me. But
Yeah.
I have noticed that when I try to speak other languages, like I picked up a little Japanese and a little Spanish. I'm easily able to adapt my accent to sound like that. Whereas other kids in my Spanish class sound like "Hola, ¿cómo estás?" and they don't adapt their voice at all. And
Yeah.
which is fine. I can still understand them, and it's completely fine. I just tend to sound a little more like it kind of helps the fluidity of it almost a little bit.
Yeah.
But
And then living in Japan, obviously you're surrounded by hearing Japanese. And then, even in places like California, like you hear the Spanish language kind of just all the time. And so you're
yeah,
able to kind of pick up on their accent and then apply it when you're using that language. And it's kind of cool. It's really cool to, adapt and say, hey, even though I'm not from here, I didn't grow up on your native language. Like, my native language is English. I can still speak your language pretty well, you know?
yeah. I'm not amazing in any of my languages they speak, but I am trying to become fluent in Spanish at the moment because that'll help me with some job opportunities in the future. But
Right.
I do want to go back and learn more about Japanese just because I already have a basic understanding of it. And I've had people ask me about it all the time, and it kind of sucks to be like, oh, I don't know that much.
Yeah.
um, but it's just interesting, I guess, learning about different languages. It's always been interesting to me. But
Yeah. And it's fun learning about different cultures. And, a lot of kids, even though I never got to live overseas, and, hopefully one day I do, wherever life takes me. But a lot of kids get to live in Germany and Italy and England and Japan. And, even I have friends that have lived in Korea. And so you
Mhm.
get all of these places, and it's like, oh my gosh, even though you weren't born there, even though it may not be in your blood, like you can say you have a part of that culture of, Germany or Japan in you, and you learn their morals, you learn their values, and, even their cooking, like seriously. But
Yeah.
you learn all of that and you become so accustomed to different cultures, and, I don't know. I think it makes you more of a well-rounded individual.
Yeah, I definitely would say that. Some people I've met just have no background knowledge in any other cultures. They don't know anything about other places except that they're different. And
Yeah.
I wish that everyone could just experience another culture for once. I do want to like experience other places outside of America. The only time I've left the country was Japan, and I didn't even realize I was really outside of America for a long time because I lived on.
Yeah.
I was also really young, so I didn't understand that it was any different. But I also kind of wish I went there when I was a bit older so I could take in the culture a little better.
Yeah.
I moved there when I was 3 or 4, and then I left when I was 8. So I was really young, and I never liked seafood. I never really cared for learning cultures when I was little.
Yeah.
Um, but now I wish, even I still don't like seafood, but I wish I could go back and get to try like authentic sushi and
Yeah.
like learn more about their culture and more about the things people do around there instead of like in America.
The incredible thing is that you can go back, vacations exist. Like, you may never
Yeah.
move back to Japan. You may never move to some of these other countries, but you can go back, you can visit, and, now knowing what you know now, you can be so much more appreciative of, wherever you go and be like,
Yeah.
hey, I want to immerse myself into this culture and immerse myself into what's going on here. And you're so much more appreciative. You have open eyes to learning everything about it.
Yeah, I do plan on actually visiting. I want to visit Japan one day, but maybe once I learn a bit more Japanese so I can understand what people are saying a little better,
Yeah.
just so then I don't get lost or anything like that. Ask people for help.
Yeah,
Um,
for sure.
Yeah. I know some of my friends really want to go to Japan, and I think some of them are actually planning on going on a vacation there with their families eventually. They were talking about something like that the other day. But we're also planning on maybe road tripping down to Florida one day as a friend group and just hitting Disney and all that. But
Yeah, that's
yeah,
awesome.
I like to talk to them about my experiences a lot too. And I tell them all about these places. And sometimes I forget that some of them have been outside the state just because, or even vice versa. I forget that they haven't left the state. And I'll talk
Yeah.
about things that sometimes they don't understand just because they haven't left. And that's okay. We always have really cool conversations about it. And they even teach me more about where I'm living now. And I get to learn more about what's going on here. I still haven't memorized half the cities that are here. And they'll start talking about in class, the teacher was talking about this one city that in a book that we're reading that's about Maine. And I was like, I have no idea where that is.
Yeah. Well, and that's kind of, I wish everyone could experience the life as a military kid. Even the days that I hated it and the days that were hard and my dad not being here and deployments and him getting hurt,
Yeah.
but the good days. I wish everyone could have some sort of experience similar to that. But it's also the beauty of the people who have lived in the same state, lived in the same, little city all of their lives. And, because they know all the little details about it. Google will
Yeah.
only tell you so much. You have to also actually talk to the people who have lived there and be like, where are the good restaurants? Where, are the good places to just sit and read a book? Where are the good places to study? Where, you have to actually there has to be a balance.
Yeah, there definitely does. Like before moving here, I thought I knew enough about Maine. The
Mhm.
culture here is way more different when talking to actual people than talking like looking up Google or whatever. Like
Yeah.
we here there's like little restaurants and gas stations, not like full on restaurants, but like little they'll make subs for you or they'll make sandwiches or pizza and it's like I never really experienced that anywhere else but here. And when talking to my dad for the first time about it, he was like, "Oh yeah, we've always done that." And my mom was a little concerned at first, but we had it, and we love just picking up a sub when we go stop for gas. It's
Yeah.
just a little thing we get to do now.
Yeah. You
Um,
you think Maine and you think trees and mountains and lakes and
and
that's about it.
lobster.
Lobster, yes, Maine lobster. But you think about those things and you're like, all right, well, that's Maine, pretty much it. Check it off the list. But
Yeah.
again, any military life, any move you make, anything, you get there and you're like, oh my gosh, this is so much more than just the stereotypical, like, thoughts of wherever you are.
Yeah, like I see deer sometimes on my way home with my mom, and I never got to see like anything besides a squirrel whenever I was with someone else. Like one day I was actually driving with my driving instructor, and I had to slow down my car because I saw a deer about to sprint across the road in front of us,
Yeah.
and it's just different, like not even just with the nature but with the people and how they act and the different types of jobs here. There's a lot of mills here in Maine, and a lot of
Yeah.
people tend to work at those mills or lumberjacking companies. And in New Mexico, everyone was like, oh, I'm a realtor or I sell cars for a living, and it's just different, I guess.
Yeah, for sure. You never know until you get there and you start exploring and start figuring it out for yourself.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
I love that about being a military kid, honestly.
Yeah.
Just
Because you have
I
to
love,
find the joy in it.
yeah. Again, my brother and I are really different when it comes to military. He was so excited when we finally stopped moving. He doesn't plan on leaving Maine anytime soon. And I'm over here like, I'm going on a senior trip. I'm going to vacation every chance I get. And
Yes.
My friends are all for it too. Again, we want to go down to Florida someday, but I just I don't want to lose that part of me that still wants to travel and see things and adventure. So I don't want to leave Maine for good. I don't think I am, but
Yeah.
I do want to see the world.
Yeah. And it's not a bad thing to, finally be excited to plant roots and be like, all right, this is where I'm at. You know, the
It's
thing
not a
is,
bad thing.
no. And I love it because, I'm graduating college and I have no clue what I'm going to do next in my life. And I'm like, I could go anywhere. Like, the world is at my fingertips. And I think the military life for sure teaches, kids and the military spouses and families in general that, like, you don't have to plant roots somewhere. You can plant roots somewhere and then dig them right up and go plant them somewhere else.
Yeah, you could be like one of those plants that like I'll plant my roots here, but I'm gonna climb the wall and get over here.
Yes. Yes, you can go anywhere. And I love that analogy actually because you can go all over the place. You can move all over the place, but you're still connected to each place you go.
Yeah. I have family a lot of places. I have friends everywhere. We actually when we went down to Florida, we got to meet with some friends that we haven't seen in years, and it was
Yeah.
so fun. I loved seeing them, and I got to reconnect with two boys that I spent with time with in Japan, and we got to hang out, and it was really fun. And they're still a part of us. Like they feel like family almost. And it's the same with places, it's the same with people. It's just interesting to feel like I'm an amalgamation of all these different places, and I love that.
Yeah. Absolutely. Um I think it's just, it's a beautiful life in general and while there's days that suck, while there's hard days, you have to cherish each moment of it because life is literally going to go by in the blink of an eye and you don't realize it until it's gone.
Yeah, I try to cherish every moment now, especially after COVID hit. I got a little down because I couldn't see people. I just moved to New Mexico, didn't get to make any friends for the first few months, and I was really, really honestly just sad for a while. And once I started being able to go out again, I discovered that I need to start cherishing every moment I have with people before I lose them or I can't hang out with them anymore or they're just gone. Because up until that moment, I hadn't realized how important it really is to just think about the moments with the people you have. But
Yeah. Yeah. You
yeah,
can't let a moment go to waste. Like absolutely. Like you have to live in the moment and, even you get caught up in things and you forget to do that and, so be it. It moves on, but you're going to look back and be like, I wish I did that. I wish I did that. I wish I talked to this person more. I wish I did this, and you
yeah,
can't go back.
I know. I have some friends that I feel like I kind of screwed up a little bit with before I moved, or I haven't gotten to speak to in years. And I feel bad for not being able to stay connected to them. And life moves on. And there's some things I wish I could have done or said to people that I never will get to. So um, it's just, it's kind of sad sometimes, but it's kind of beautiful in another way. Like, no matter what happens, you can still look back and you can still think about all the things you didn't do, but that's not going to change it.
Yeah.
You just have to keep going on with life.
Yeah. Literally everything happens for a reason, no matter how horrible it is, how great it is, it happens for a reason. And if it's meant to be, you'll find another way for it to happen. Like another way will come up, another door will open. Um, but in the moment, you have to be like, all right, well, was it meant to be? Like, or it was great while it lasted, or, whatever
Yeah.
attitude you have towards it. And, you have to keep moving on.
Yeah. I try to take those moments and just apply them to my relationships now. So then I don't mess up in the same way. Like,
Yeah.
uh, even I've been in Maine for almost 2 years now. And last year, a bunch of stuff happened with some of my friends, and I stopped hanging out with them just because some stuff happened. And now I'm with a new group of friends, and I'm applying the knowledge I learned from that to them. And if someone starts trying to change that or whatever, I shut them down immediately so then it doesn't get as bad as it did last time. So,
Yeah.
like,
You don't know the true meaning and true value of a relationship until it's gone. And that's the hard part. And that's you know it's gonna be the same for everything, and whether you like it or not. But you know, it's hard. And the military life definitely, moves you around, shuffles you, crumbles you up, throws you into a new place. And, who knows what happens? You have to figure out for yourself on how that's going to impact you and how you're going to react to it.
yeah, although it does teach you how to handle that kind of behavior a little better than maybe some people who
Yes.
aren't used to losing people. Like, I'm used to just like uprooting and leaving people. So if something happens where I can't see someone anymore, I'm a lot easier able to adapt and just overcome it than my friends who may also have been friends with this person, but now they're struggling to be without them.
Yeah, for sure. It's a weird thing, and it's a blessing and a curse at the same time.
Yeah, it really is.
um the last thing I always like to ask people, because I think it can just be so beneficial and helpful to other kids, past and present military kids and future. But what is one piece of advice you would give to another military kid?
Mm, even if you don't like a place or don't like a situation, find something to learn from it, overcome it. Don't just let it hold you down like it is. I've been in some pretty bad situations or pretty bad places where I've had to live for a long time. And now I use that to my advantage to help make me a better person. So then I understand people better and I learn from those mistakes.
Absolutely. You have to take every moment of your life and view it as a lesson, and take what you learn from it and move on and keep going.
Yeah. To me, the worst failure is to make a mistake over and over and over again. I'm pretty sure that was Einstein's version of insanity, just to keep repeating. And
Yeah.
well, I don't think that's true for everything, but if you keep making the same mistake over and over again, that you're not learning from it, and that's not amazing, and you might never overcome it if you just don't try to learn from it.
Yeah. Well, Lily, you are wise among your years, and, contributed towards the military life or not, you are going to be so successful, and no matter which way you choose.
Thank you. I believe you are very wise too. I feel so enlightened right now in your presence.
Oh, you're so sweet. Thank you so much. And thank you for being here and sharing your experience as a military child and what it was like for you.
Thanks for having me. It was really nice to hear from another military brat to learn about your experiences.
I know. It's so nice to talk to other people.
Yeah, it really is.
Thank you for listening to this week's episode of Grace of a Military Child and Life. Make sure to set a reminder for every Tuesday to listen to a new episode. You can find us on Instagram and YouTube at Grace of a Military Child and Life. If you have any questions or want to be on the podcast, send a message to one of our social media platforms or email grace.of.a.military.child@gmail.com. See you next week.